What up, guys? What up, guys? Welcome to the next episode of the Speaking Heat podcast, and this is going to be a big one. Big one. Excited for today's show, man. Just happened mere minutes ago. New college football playoff rankings, second to last rankings came out. Some interesting things told by the committee. We'll dive into that. That's really going to be one of our big focuses is these new rankings and going into the weekend. This past weekend, obviously, most of the college football playoff field was set. A lot of teams won some games and really kind of solidified themselves in this bracket. Other news, really, coaching carousel. Mainly Lane Kiffin. Obviously, Lane Kiffin's going to LSU. Big news. A lot of people are torn on it, just the way that it went down. And I'll kind of share my thoughts on that a little bit. We will dive into the conference championships that are coming this weekend, this Saturday, or really Friday and Saturday. We've got college football playoff, advancing games, clinching games when it comes to these conference championships. The ACC, they could be left out of this thing. So we'll kind of dive into the scenario of the ACC when it comes to the playoff. We'll dive into the group of five contention. There's a couple different things that could happen with the group of five. There's not a whole lot of solid ground with a lot of these teams. So we'll dive into some different scenarios and who'll get in. Really, we're just going to kind of take a look at these rankings and preview forward to these conference championships and look at what may happen Sunday. Obviously, the playoff rankings are this upcoming Sunday at noon, so we'll dive into that. But big show, man, big show. There's a lot to cover because playoff is literally mere days away, and we got a quick insight by the committee, and we'll break down these rankings because I think the committee told us some things, and I think certain teams are going to be in, certain teams are going to be out if certain things happen. So. We'll dive in, man. Excited for today's show. So really, the first thing we're really going to look at here is the past weekend, man. This weekend is really kind of what really set a lot of these teams in the playoff. Basically, it was a ton of winning you're in scenarios, and a lot of really, it wasn't a lot of big games, but important games for all these teams. Quick in review, we saw, really the big game of the weekend. We saw Texas upset Texas A&M at home, and really looking at the playoff rankings tonight. In my opinion, it didn't do a lot for Texas. In my opinion, I don't think them at 13 allows them a spot to get in, and Texas A&M drops to 7. So it's not really something that I look at as a big deal for A&M. And when it comes to Texas, I don't think it really did a whole lot for them either because I don't think that they have a shot to get in at 13 because they do not play this weekend. But interesting game. But Texas got a win. A couple of games that, to a degree, could be defining when it comes to who gets in and the contention for the playoff. Right. Miami beat Pitt. Miami win and beat Pitt 38-7. Big win. Looked really good in my opinion. Carson Beck is playing better. Really eliminated Pitt from contention for the ACC. And now it really, in my opinion, it put Miami in a bubble position. But once these rankings came out tonight, I don't really think it did a whole lot for them. I expected Miami to be about 11. I thought they would jump BYU, especially with BYU going down the USF and having to come back and win. I really thought that we'd see Miami, go up to 11 to what I really consider a true bubble spot, and potentially maybe get in, with according to what happens with some teams in front of them. Miami beating Pitt, it would have thrusted them in a position, but I don't think the committee saw the value in that win. And Cal beating SMU might be, the most defining of the weekend when it comes to, who won, just because SMU had a chance to get into the ACC championship, and Cal upset them, and they eliminated SMU basically for contention for the ACC. And so now it's going to be, Duke is in there against Virginia. And so that changes up some things. that win right there, in my opinion, by Cal completely changes, the bottom three spots of the playoff because now contention is different, especially with the group of five. We'll dive into that a little bit, but couple games that were like really defining when it comes to establishing who potentially can get in and different contention scenarios. So looking at the games from this weekend, really, not a whole lot happened, to be real. We saw, everybody from ranked number 1 through about, I think, around 15 or 16. Everyone won except Texas A&M. So essentially, it doesn't change a whole lot when it comes to the rankings. We saw that here a couple minutes ago with the playoff rankings. There wasn't a whole lot of movement. So, we saw A&M drop, but that's going to happen. But there really wasn't a whole lot of movement. So it doesn't really shake up a ton for the playoff. But I think really the thing to look at is the group of five, because we saw Tulane win, we saw North Texas win, and we saw James Madison win. Those are going to be the three, teams really that's going to be vying for that last group of five, or those last two potential group of five spots. Obviously, we saw after these wins, we saw Tulane get to 20, and we saw North Texas at 24 and JMU at 25. So to me, the committee's telling you that if things happen above them, that there are at least three spots, or not three spots, but three teams vying for two potential playoff spots. So I really see the committee really posing the group of five to potentially get even two teams in. So that's a takeaway that I really saw when it comes to the rankings and the group of five picture when it comes to the playoff. And really, out of the weekend, man, we saw all these games happen, but the big news really was the coaching carousel that took place this weekend. We saw multiple big jobs taken by a handful of coaches, and really, obviously the big talking point is Lane Kiffin going to LSU. But other than him going to LSU, we saw John Summerall, leaving Tulane and take the Florida job. He's done a good job with that Tulane group over there. And, he's got them, pursuing a college football playoff run. So we saw him go to Florida. We saw Alex Golish go from a USF team to Auburn, which I actually really, really like. I like Alex Golish. I like the system that he runs. And really he this year had, great success. Obviously, he doesn't have the greatest 3-year like win-loss record, but he's had a really good year this year. Obviously, the win at Florida, he's got 2 bowl wins at USF, so I like that. I like that pickup from Auburn. Obviously, James Franklin was the big hire, earlier in the year, and really the big news everyone's really talking about is Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss to go to LSU. Messy breakup, to be honest. Not the greatest way to leave Ole Miss. Kind of was holding out, was holding this whole thing out, drawing it out. And eventually, I think it was Sunday, it came to light that he was, in fact, taking the LSU job. And, when it comes to Lane Kiffin, we all know Lane Kiffin. Great offensive mind. One of the best coaches in the country, had a great run at Ole Miss, 54-19 in 6 years there. Seeing him go to LSU, is it a surprise? No. LSU's a great job. One of the best programs in the country. They're all about ball. And I think it does suck, in my opinion, that he wasn't able to continue coaching Ole Miss because, they're one of the best teams in the country. They're 6th in the country and about to hit a playoff run. So I really would have liked to have seen Lane Kiffin be able to try to make a run with them, but he's going to be in LSU. And I actually think it's going to be, a fairly successful run because I think they have the resources that he's looking for. And, they're going to do everything it takes to win. So, major news with Lane Kiffin. Great pickup by LSU. And then I think The D coordinator for Ole Miss, which I can't remember his name, but I know he just got promoted to head coach for Ole Miss. So I hear that the players and that team are really behind him. So it's good for Ole Miss. I think them keeping a lot of their coaching staff intact throughout the playoff run, even though some of them are going to be leaving to go to Ole Miss with Lane. I like seeing it, and hopefully they can make a good run. But big news with Lane Kiffin going to LSU. And now we're gonna take a look at this week's conference championships, and really, this week's show. I mean, this is really what it comes down to. This is really what this week's show is really about, because obviously big games, but these games are determining who gets in, who gets what seeding, and especially at the bottom end, there's a lot of things that can happen. There's a lot of things. There's some potential turmoil that can happen too. So we're gonna take a look here. Obviously, the big game of the week, obviously, is going to be Ohio State versus Indiana. Number one versus number two in the country. It doesn't get much bigger than that. Two Big Ten teams that are finally going to square off. Really, not a whole lot to say there. Both teams are going to get in the playoffs. Let's be real here. But this is going to be for who gets that number one spot. I think whoever loses this game, unless they're blown out, I think the loser of this game is going to get a top four spot here. Me personally, I think I like Ohio State in this game. I don't know. I've seen more of a test when it comes to Indiana, but I think Ohio State from top to bottom has the better roster. I trust them more in big games because I haven't seen Indiana, but in one big game, and that's when they went to Austin and beat Oregon. So I think Ohio State probably wins this game. Jeremiah Smith, probably the best receiver in the country, is gonna be playing, and I think he's gonna be a problem to stop. So I think Ohio State gets this one done and wins the Big Ten title and gets that number one seed. Let's move on to the SEC here. We got Alabama versus Georgia. Major game because I think there are some implications here for who wins and who loses. I think with the way that the seeding is right now, I think Alabama has to win to get in. In my opinion, I think Georgia can afford a loss. I don't think Bama can. I think if Alabama loses, I think they're probably going to drop right outside that bubble spot. They may be the last team out of the bubble. 3 losses on the season. I could see, if Bama wins, Georgia's going to drop. And I think Bama's going to move up in that, anywhere from 4 to 7 range. But for sure, the winner of this SEC title is getting in probably near the top 4, probably getting a bye. But I think Bama has to win this game. I think 100% Bama has to win here. Big 12, my pick for this game, I do think Georgia probably wins this game. And the reason I would say so, whenever we saw Georgia play Bama earlier in the year, Georgia was a different football team. I think they've kind of found themselves. They've kind of hit a stride. Gunnar Stockton's starting to play well. He's played well most of the year, but I think he's really starting to hit a stride where there's some confidence and there's some juice in this offense. So I think Georgia probably picks up a win here and avenges that loss from earlier in the year against Bama. And I think Bama probably falls out of the playoff here. Big 12. Big game for playoff standings because obviously Texas Tech beat BYU in the regular season. I think Texas Tech probably wins this game, to be real. But if Texas Tech wins, they're going to get in. They're probably going to get a bye. If BYU wins, I think there's a chance that they're a bid stealer in all this because they're right now on the bubble. If BYU wins, they're going to get in for sure. Texas Tech is also going to get in. So I think it really puts a lot of pressure on Notre Dame because now Notre Dame's on the bubble at 10. I think, a team outside of like that 10, 11 range winning and getting in, that's going to move that bubble line up. So I think if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're going to want Texas Tech to win this game because you want BYU to be out of there because now, that takes, you're above the bubble line and I think Notre Dame gets in. Because I do think Texas Tech probably wins this game, probably a little bit closer than it was the last time. I think BYU just played a bad game, but I do think Texas Tech probably wins this game and gets a bye here. Um, and then the ACC. So this is where things start getting crazy. So we're gonna look at the ACC, the American, and the Sun Belt because right now we're looking at ACC matchup between Virginia and Duke. And this is big for the playoff because Virginia's sitting at 17. They're obviously a bid stealer when it comes to the top 12 spots. If Virginia wins, they're obviously in. So that's going to push that bubble line. That's going to push it up a spot just because they're going to be a conference champion that's going to be outside of the top 12. If Duke wins, I think if Duke wins, there's a chance that the ACC is left out of the playoff. Because if you look at North Texas, Tulane, and James Madison, they're going to be ranked higher than Duke if Duke wins the ACC championship. Two champions there in the group of five are going to be ranked higher than an ACC champion. That tells me the ACC ends up getting left out. I think Virginia wins this game. I think they're a better team than Duke. I think Virginia is a decent football team. I think the ACC will be represented in the playoff because I think Virginia probably wins this game. But scary for Duke. The ACC better be cheering for Virginia because you don't want to see one of your major four conferences get left out. So I think Virginia is going to take the win here. But interesting if Duke takes a win because that's going to shake up a lot of things, especially at the bottom here. And then we'll take a look at the group of five. And really, you got three teams vying for it. You got North Texas. They're going to Tulane for the American Championship. And then we've got Troy at James Madison. Troy's not a factor here, but we're looking at North Texas, Tulane, and James Madison. The winner of North Texas, Tulane, for sure is getting in the playoff, in my opinion. For sure they're getting in. Just because they're ranked 20 and 24. So, they're going to be ranked high enough to get at least that last group of five spot. Now, I think James Madison has a chance to get in, especially if I think Duke wins the ACC. If Duke wins the ACC, there's going to be two group of five teams in there. So I think there's a good chance that we see one group of five team in. But big games for both North Texas and Tulane. So, this is big for them. This is big for the group of five because, not only do you get in the playoff, but now you have a chance to get two teams in. So, big for them, big for the American, big for the Sun Belt, and seeing the group of five, really emerging late to give us multiple options to get in the playoff is a very, very interesting. I'm excited to see how that works out. And really, the question is who's in, and really, especially looking at the way that the rankings have shaped out, especially at the bottom. I kind of got an idea of what I think is going to end up happening here. I'm just gonna run down through, what I think is going to happen, what I think the bracket's going to look like. So I think Ohio State is going to beat Indiana. I think they get in. I think Indiana also gets in, obviously. I think Georgia wins the SEC championship. I think Georgia moves to 2. I think Texas Tech wins the Big 12 championship. I think they actually would move to 3. And then I think Indiana moves to 4 here. Then I see, obviously, Oregon's going to be in at 5. Ole Miss is going to be in at 6. A&M at 7. Oklahoma at 8. I think Bama drops out of the college football playoff because of the loss to Georgia. I think Notre Dame moves down to 9. I feel like probably because of the residual effect here of teams that are going to lose, I think BYU is also dropping. I think Miami actually will move into that 10 spot here. And then I think because of the way that the playoff works, you get the 5 highest ranked conference champions to get in. So I think the cut line is going to be, you got to be within the top 10. And I think we're going to see Virginia win and get in, and they'll be 11. And then I think Tulane is going to be 12, and they're going to get in. And I think it's going to be simple as Ohio State 1. I think I got it. Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Texas Tech 3, Indiana 4, Oregon 5, Ole Miss 6, A&M 7, Oklahoma 8, Notre Dame 9, Miami 10. I got Virginia essentially getting the 11th seed, and then Tulane getting the 12th seed. So I actually do think that Miami does get in the college football playoff here, because I do think that they're going to be in that conversation at the bubble, and I think the bubble cut line is going to be at 10. I think you got to be within the top 10 as an at-large to get in, because I do think Virginia and Tulane are going to get those last two spots. And I think that's our playoff. Very interesting. Obviously, I think, next week we'll dive into predictions and picking the bracket. But I think that's an interesting bracket, man. I'm excited to see how that works out, because, me personally, I actually would like to see Miami get in. I think Miami is a secret tough out, because I think personnel wise they have the horses to get it done. Interesting, this is wild to go through and look at, just because obviously the playoff, so many things change, so many things happen. Very, very interested to see how this is going to go. Can't wait to see how this is going to go. Saturday is going to be amazing. I'm really, really looking forward to this Saturday and seeing how these games shake out, and seeing this playoff really come together. And really, we might be doing a show on Sunday, reacting to the actual playoff rankings. We thought about doing something live, but I think we may skip the live. But I think we'll probably do a show right after the playoff rankings come out. Or we might do a show reacting to the rankings as they come out. But nonetheless, man, this is going to be an exciting next week when it comes to Speaking Heat. And also, the world of college football, because this is wild. This is, a great race to see who gets in the playoff. And very, very excited. I like what I see here. I'm excited. So we'll jump off of here, and we'll be back next week, and we'll start diving into and reacting to the games this weekend, and actually, take a look at the real playoff, and start making some picks. And the real is gonna come out Sunday. So excited, man. We'll jump off of here. Nice to speak some Heat, man, and we'll catch you guys next week.